Hi everyone, my name is Shantasia. Welcome to my channel. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know that it has been a while, so I apologize for my absence. It definitely was unplanned. I have had a lot going on over the last few months, including sickness, and also I moved again. So lots of changes going on, but I will update you on all of that later. I just wanted to do a 2018 reading wrap up because I got a lot of reading accomplished this last year. And I did set a really big goal on my Goodreads, and if you want to follow me, be sure to check the link below. I would absolutely love to have more friends on there. I love seeing what other people are reading and what your thoughts are on the books that you're reading. But I set a pretty high goal for myself of 200 books, and I actually completed 136 books, which was 68%. And I was surprised by that because I am a pretty big reader. I'm reading constantly, so I knew I could probably get to 200, but it still shocked me. So I'm not really going to go into too many of the books that I read because I was very experimental this year with things. So I read a lot more genres that I wouldn't normally read. I read like thrillers and mysteries. Annihilation was one of them that I read, which was a very interesting book and I enjoyed very much. But my absolute favorites were kind of surprising to me, I guess. For one thing, my very, 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 very favorite was the book by Kathleen Norris, Acedia in Me, A Marriage, Monks, and a Writer's Life. And I picked this up because she is a poet, and I think this is the most eloquent book I have ever read and deepest book that I have ever read. And I took a long time to read it. If you look at my Goodreads, you can see that it took me quite a while to get through it. And I have decided that I'm going to reread it because there's so much information in this book. She talks about the correlation between like our unhappiness as a society and like that feeling of boredom and just disquiet, and her journey through exploring that through religious writings and spending time with monks and other religious individuals and learning about this word acedia and what it meant. And I highly recommend it because it is incredible, her journey, and it's probably one that I'm always going to keep. The next series that I read was the Black Tiger series by Sarah Basinger, and I loved this series. This is my first foray into Christian speculative fiction, and which is kind of crazy because that's what I write, so you'd think I would read more of it, but I actually never really have. And this was a series that I discovered, I think, through Realm Makers, and I loved it. Like, there is definitely religious theme throughout the whole book, but it's a dystopian series, but it's also like Rome, and it's just amazing. Like, there's no real way to describe it. I would tell you to go read it. I got the first book and I read it, I think, in like 4 hours, and then went and immediately got the second one, and within like a week I had read all three. And I do want to revisit these ones too because the characterization was amazing. There's a love triangle, but it's not like overly done, and it just seems fresh, and everything about it is just so different. I never expected anything that was coming next, and it's hard for me to find books that are like that, so I recommend that one as well. And then another book that I read that was outside of my genre was Find Her by Lisa Gardner. And I actually read several books from this series, but this was the first one that I picked up, and I think it's like number 8 in the series. It's like the DD something or other mysteries or whatever. This was the first one because the blurb was so catchy. It was about a young woman that had been kidnapped and the journey that she took from who she was to, you know, the resulting person that she became due to the trauma. And the books do follow her as they go forward. So I did read a few afterwards just because I was curious about her storyline, but I didn't really enjoy any of the other ones. But this one was amazing. Again, it was twisting and turning, and you had no clue what was going on. And just when you think you had it figured out, everything would change, and it was just really an exciting book. So that one I want to add to my shelves. Most of these books I do not have the covers or the books with me because they were either Kindle books or the library, and my family utilized the library like crazy this summer. We did a ton of reading and won a lot of prizes in the reading program, which was pretty awesome. My biggest surprise, I think, for favorites was I randomly picked up the Gender Game series by Bella Forrest. And I had heard about this series in passing. Like, I didn't hear anything about whether it was good or bad or what people really felt about it, but it was just like a different premise. The idea of the world being separated by gender. So one society is all male, and the females have very specific roles that they have to fit within that society, and then the opposite on the other side of the river. And I was very excited about this series. I gobbled up like the first few books. The last one I haven't read yet. I think I've got 2 more left to read, but I just kind of wanted to take a break with it. Sometimes what I do with like my TV series or my favorite series is I will prolong the reading of the end of the series, because to me it's just like it hasn't ended yet, and it's just like a little game I play, I guess. So I have not finished this yet, but I really like the dynamic between the 2 main characters. Just with, they're both, I mean, not to sound like tropey, but they're both very strong characters, but they like counterbalance each other pretty well, and it's like a harmony almost. I don't know, I feel like she did a really, really good job of not making the romance to be too much, and how it is so much about the main character's family and her struggle to come to terms with things that happened with her brother, and then finding out a really shocking truth and how she deals with it. And it was kind of like, it reminded me a little bit of Allegiant and the Divergent series, I guess, except for I felt like she was more genuine. Her self-sacrificing was a little bit more genuine than maybe Triss's was. And don't hit me, but I mean, I really liked the Divergent series, but it's kind of like Twilight. I read it once, and then when I revisited it, it just wasn't as good the second time. So this is a series I definitely think I will revisit, because it was very interesting and very cliffhangery, and I just enjoyed all of the character relationships. A lot of the minor characters were some of my very favorite characters. Most disappointing list. One of them is a book that was turned into a movie, and the other one was one that I kind of hesitate to mention because it was a beta read that I did. And the only reason that I put it on this list is because it had been previously published a year before I actually beta read it. So I don't know. I'm probably not going to say too much about it just because I'm just not going to. But the first book that I found most disappointing was The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. And the reason I found it disappointing was because the movie was so amazing, and I don't usually find it that way. It's usually the opposite, that the book was so good and they did the movie and maybe it was okay, and maybe they expounded on things and made it a little bit different and better different, or they just totally killed it and just destroyed the whole thing and you just take the DVD and want to break it in pieces. But this time it was actually the opposite. I did not enjoy the book. I actually had to force myself to finish it, And there's a few reasons for it, mostly because I do not enjoy books that switch POVs. So if you have a book that one chapter is this character and the next chapter is this character, no. A lot of times I find that authors have a hard time creating distinctive voices for those characters that they're switching back and forth to. And if I get confused and I have to keep flipping back to the beginning of the chapter to figure out who on earth it is that I'm with, I just quit usually. And so a lot of times I don't even give those books a chance. But because the movie was so amazing and I felt like I had no idea what was going on, it was very suspenseful. I wanted to see the book because I felt like the book would be even better, but I just didn't like it. For one thing, there really wasn't a sense of suspense with the book. It was very, you kind of knew everything that was going on from every perspective, because if I remember correctly, it was it was 3 POVs. So it was like the wife's point of view, the husband's point of view, and the mistress's point of view. And in the movie, you only get the ex-wife's point of view. And so you have no clue what is going on with these other 2 characters or what their perspective of what is happening is. And I loved that. So that book was kind of disappointing. It wasn't even kind of disappointing. I think I had it for 2 years, and this was the year that I was going to read it. And I really wanted to like it. It was one of those books. I really wanted to like it, and I really wanted to love it, but I just could not. The second book was the one that I beta read for about a year after it had already been published. And that was a speculative Christian fiction book by Rose S. King called Blessings of the Firebirds Light. And there were a lot of circumstances that pushed her to publish this book early. So I kind of tried to take that into consideration, but there were just a few things in the book that I really couldn't I really couldn't suspend my belief for, I guess. So there was a lot of crutch words and a lot of things going on in the book that were kind of hard. But like her pacing was amazing. The world building was absolutely excellent. But the things that I saw in it that were just kind of like pet peeves for me, I guess. I just didn't enjoy it. And I've looked at the reviews for her book, or for this particular book, and I mean, everyone has a different opinion, so I mean, seriously, don't take my opinion and don't just say I'm not going to read that now. But like, everybody else kind of had a different opinion of the book than I did, so I don't really know if it was just because it was not my genre or what it was. Just that because there was a lot of good things about this book. Again, it was another book that switched POVs between the main female character and the main male character, and she definitely had a distinctive voice, so that was not a problem for me to read at all. I could keep track of it. So there was a lot of positive with the book. It was just like the negative things I just could not get past for some reason. So yeah, sadly, I mean, this is a series, and for what I understand, she is going to be publishing the next book in the series, but I will not be reading it, sadly, because I just can't let go of the whole thing. Like, it was just like the incontinuity of it, and the, like, I guess, I don't know if you would call it a plot hole or just like an inconsistency. I'm not sure. It just irked me so much. So onto my goals for 2019. I decided not to be quite as lofty with my reading goals, and this year I am planning to try and hit 150 books. I am wanting to be just as adventurous with my reading this year as I was last year, because I feel like the books that I did read that I really liked, they were all pretty much outside of the genre that I usually read. Usually I'm more into like science fiction, historical romance, more about Scotland and Ireland, time travel, futuristic romance. This time it was very much different, like more suspense. I read like Annihilation, which is definitely an extremely unique book. and I recommend that everyone would read that one. I should probably put that as an honorable mention book because it seriously consumed a lot of my time because I could not stop thinking about what it meant. And I'm not going to give any of it away because it's definitely a book you have to experience. It is a wild ride from beginning to end, and I seriously still have no clue what was going on in that book because there's 500 different things that could have been going on, and I just keep thinking about it over and over again. So anyways, so definitely going to stick with the adventurous reading this year and trying to experience new genres and new authors. That is my reading wrap up. I thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you get to experience a lot of different worlds and adventures over the next year in your reading. And if you are doing a reading goal for 2019, be sure to drop a comment down below and let me know how many books that you are reading. That's all for today. We'll see you next time.